Predictions are open and spawning. In the bottom left-hand corner of Alkyon, we have the South Korean Protoss player representing Match Arena Esports, taking down Solar in the quarterfinals. It is NightMare. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the South Korean Protoss. Representing Twisted Minds, we have Classic. Here we go. But again, so we did actually get partnered yesterday, or I say yesterday, I want to say almost 2 days ago at this point, we did reach partner. So if there are ads running, I guess that's a new feature because we're partnered, that ads are now going to be running. It wasn't something that we had for affiliate. So if that's the case, I will try and do a better job here at actually running ads whenever we are whenever we wrap up a series. So we wrap up a series, and then we'll just like play an ad or something. So hopefully the ads aren't like in the middle of a game or in the middle of a best of 3. Ideally. So I'll try and stay on top of that as we are here in our PvP. In our first semifinals, predictions are going to be closed in a couple of seconds, so make sure you get your predictions going. As for now, double gate openers all around. So far everything is looking as it should. 2 gateways here from Classic, 2 gateways from NightMare. And the question becomes, what are our first units going to be? Do we go double Adept? Do we go double Stalker? How do we approach this? Thank you. It took us 6 years. It took us 6 years of casting every day. Not quite. It's a little bit facetious. It took us, what, 3 years of casting every day and 6 years of casting, and 3 more years behind that, casting like on a weekly basis or a couple of times a week. We made it. We're partnered. Long time coming. Let's go. For those wondering, we started casting full-time at the start of COVID, so beginning of 2020. Before that, we would just cast over the weekend. We didn't really cast during the week itself, just because I was working full-time at the time, so I could only cast like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Back in 2019, 2018, and 2017, but here we go. The armies are going to be clashing. We did go double Stalker. Going to be clashing here in the center of the map, and so far, NightMare does shoot first. Ooh, Stalker does go down, and he does get a couple of extra hits in, forcing a recall. Should not kill the second Stalker. Thankfully, it will escape, but a bit of a skirmish did go NightMare's way. Behind this, we're getting to our expansions. We haven't rushed into any form of tech, no form of hyper-aggression from either player yet, as we end up going into sentries, and we have our tech of choice, NightMare, going for a Twilight Council, as we can now focus on our game. So Twilight Council opener here from NightMare. Likewise, tech of choice for Classic, also going to be a Twilight Council. So blink on the way for both players. Stalkers are going to push on forward. Going to be threatening that natural waste, forcing out some, oh my god, some force fields a bit prematurely. Classic trigger happy there. And these force fields, obviously it means that we don't have force fields for the next fight, but also we don't have hallucinations to actually get a read on what's going on. Classic actually hasn't seen the Twilight Council yet. He doesn't know what his opponent is doing. There we go. He warps in a 3rd sentry, so he will have a hallucination. That is a bit of a waste of resources to have to get another one, but it is going to keep him safe. Safe and secure. His hallucinations are moving out. Again, we can see that nothing crazy is going on, but they still need to confirm that themselves, as hallucination is going to be coming in for NightMare. We should be seeing a hallucination soon from Classic as well. He's waiting to get enough energy on that sentry. When you warp them in, they do not have enough for a hallucination, and there we go, it's on the way. He is going to be on the way. Likewise, NightMare also gets a full scout. He does confirm the Twilight Council, sees it researching, is aware of Blink. Likewise, so is Classic. As Classic heads into the main base, counts the pylons, and does see the researching Twilight Council as well. So everyone knows that everything is as it should be. Both players going to be expanding. They both know it is safe to take a 3rd. So 3rd bases are on the way. Classic just vying for map control. And the game is going to be settling down from here. We're settling down. Settling down. And usually Korean PvP, like, it's usually just action-packed from the beginning, but yeah, for the first time in a long time, this PvP is just kind of easing in towards the mid-game. The map also plays into this. Alkyone has a longer rush distance by ground, has a lot of bases to take. You can be very defensive on 3 and then 4 bases. It's very difficult to be too aggressive in the mid-game. So, yeah, we're getting a little bit more out of these two. Which is more than I can say out of the last series that we had. Like, Dark versus Classic, that was a quick one, Bobby. That was a quick one. It ended before it really began. Here we go. Classic is moving out. Again, he's just threatening a push. I don't think he really wants to commit. Looking at the army values here, they are actually quite similar to each other. Hallucination confirms. Charge is on the way. As there's another upgrade researching. The Forge is a saturation on the 3rd. Classic is going to be threatening a push towards that 3rd base of NightMare. But NightMare's in position. Doesn't really lose much of anything. Classic is forced back. And here are our gateway explosions for both players. Gateway explosion for Classic and NightMare. Getting into a very gateway heavy composition. A swarm toss style, if you will, just blink stalkers and charge lots. We haven't taken up into Archons yet, but Archons, they should be next, or they should be the next step here for both players. As Classic is going to be taking the initiative and he takes the gold. Gold base has been taken. NightMare going for a standard 4th base. Up. And NightMare, he does see the pylon. He knows. The pylon, the positioning of the army. NightMare, he hasn't seen the base itself, but very suspect. And suddenly, there's going to be a lot of pressure on NightMare to make some magic happen here. Now, Classic is teching. He's getting a 4th base. He's going into a Temple Archives for Archons. Meanwhile, NightMare is taking a 4th and getting a Prism to push out. So again, NightMare is the aggressor. Classic going to be the defender. Shield batteries are on the way. Oh, can Classic bypass this army? It looks like he's coming in from the right-hand side. Classic a bit out of position. Uh-oh. Observer will confirm this. And NightMare, he dives in. He's aware that Classic is not where he should be. He gets on top of the base. Pylon goes down, denies the warp in, and we will force a cancel on this Nexus. We're trying to. We are attempting to, going for a big warp in as well. The Zealot do collapse on top of the army. Shield battery is depowered. And it, not just the base, but also can we get on top of the army? NightMare is snowballing out of control. He dives on top of the Immortal. 1 Immortal goes down. 2nd Immortal will go down as well. Just too many losses too quickly for Classic. This is not a fight that he can take. He had to save the base. GG gets called. And in one swift move, NightMare takes game 1. GG. GG, well played. Things were pretty passive. Things were very macro-oriented to begin with. And then everything suddenly changed. Then, of course, NightMare saw the goal base, had to do something about it, and sometimes all it takes in a mirror matchup especially is to be out of position. Is to be caught out of position. Classic, he missed the army, barely missed it with, remember, just before NightMare pushed out, we had 2 hallucinations. We had some hallucinated Phoenixes. Oh my god. We saw some hallucinated Phoenixes move out as Get everyone in here. Are we missing casters? I guess we are. I didn't realize. I guess, okay, never mind. It looks like most casters went to the upper semis. Yeah, we're getting into game number 2. But again, the hallucinated scout, so unfortunate that it barely missed the army. Classic didn't know where his opponent was coming from, was caught on the wrong side of the wall, the wrong side of the base, and yeah, that was just a really awkward fight, really awkward engagement for NightMare. The concave was real, sorry, for Classic, the concave was real, and now we're getting into game number 2, and spawning in the bottom right-hand corner of Hardlead, we have the South Korean Protoss representing Maturino Esports. It is NightMare. And spawning in the top left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the South Korean Protoss, we have the red Protoss representing Twisted Minds. It is Classic. here we go. And yeah, when it comes down to it, when it comes down to the last game, it was pretty even and pretty neck and neck for the majority of the game. Honestly, things were quite close, and it just came down to NightMare out-positioning Classic. Like, one wrong move, and it was over then and there. I guess it wasn't just out-positioning, but also the fact that Classic committed to the fight. That's maybe where we can put a little bit more fault here on Classic in that last game, where he was caught out of position. He did have a really hard time engaging at his gold, and he decided to fight then and there, and it was just not a good fight for him. It was just really awkward. The SimCity working against Classic. NightMare had the concave. He had such good surface area on the base and the army as well, and yeah, it was just it just very quickly snowballed out of control in favor of NightMare. But now we're putting that past us, and now we're getting into game number 2 in this series. NightMare, of course, needs one more Onomas to take it all, and Classic needs to fight back here and now to force the ace match. Once again, 2 gate openers. 2 gate openers all around. Classic does hide his second pylon. NightMare sees that. He goes into the main. He does notice that the second pylon is missing. And there could be a proxy. There could not be. NightMare doesn't know. As back at home, NightMare just has the second pylon in his main. He's not really playing around with mind games too much. Probe of Classic is making its way across the map. And yeah, NightMare, he has to scout. He has to send a second probe. And this is already damage. This is already damage being done. That is one probe that isn't mining, one extra probe that isn't mining here for NightMare. But he comes across the pylon. The first probe does scout the pylon. Now NightMare knows that there's nothing on the map. He can come back home. He can go back to mining. So technically, Classic is slightly ahead in the economy. You can see that reflected in the resources. We haven't expanded yet either, as NightMare essentially had one extra probe that just wasn't doing anything for a while because it was scouting. There it is. Base is being taken. Classic does have a slightly faster natural. NightMare a little bit behind. And again, it may not look like a lot, but in a mirror matchup, two extra probes that aren't mining, it's a big deal. It is a big deal, as we have the Hallucination Scout coming towards the main. We see Classic did go for some extra sentries here. Meanwhile, we made extra Stalkers instead, so NightMare has a little bit more firepower, but he's not really doing much with it. He's just chilling here in the center of the map. Oracle's going to be coming in, looking to force an overreaction, as it's a hallucinated Oracle instead of a Phoenix. And won't really force a reaction, does at least confirm everything that we see. Didn't see the tech. Once again, Twilight Council from both players, both NightMare and Classic. And NightMare is pushing, has a proxy pylon out of the map. NightMare, he does have additional Stalkers, but he's pushing into these sentries. We have a shield battery, overcharge, and force fields. Push in. We get one. We get one. We try to get a second. We barely do get it as well through the overcharge. Get a third. Get the hell out of there. We tried to, but that was quite a number of losses. Looking at the units lost tab here, that was 3 sentries for 3 Stalkers. Oof. A rough trade for NightMare. But I mean, I would say this is a rough trade just because Stalkers have a lot of value, but taking down the sentries means that Classic is in the dark, and we go straight for a Dark Shrine! I love it. I do love it here. Basically, NightMare, he made sure that there was no scout. There is no scouting for Classic. It goes straight for the tech. Ooh, gonna be losing another one of those Stalkers. Threatening a shade into that mineral line, forcing back his opponent. Pylon is gonna go down. Classic is taking a third base. Robo on the way. That was close. If we had delayed this Robo any longer, then we may not have detection in time for the Dark Templar. Thankfully, it's on the way. We should have an observer now. What's important is that the first observer typically does move out across the map, which means the detection may not be at home when the DTs hit. We may have to recall the observer back home instead, depending on the timing. A lot of this will come down to the timing of the observer, the positioning, and when the DTs do get into the mineral lines. Depth is going to go down. NightMare still a little bit in the dark. Here we go, the Dark Templar on the way. Robo just now finishing up. These DTs, they will kill some workers, but there should be detection at home. And there it is, it's rallied outside the natural. The Stalkers are moving out though. Even if we have detection, the army's out of position. Oh. That's going straight for the natural base. Meanwhile, back at home, NightMare, he can hold here. He's down a base, but he is up with a shield battery with an overcharge. And probes are going down. Oof. There we go. 7, 9. Oh my god. 9 probes going down at the same time. Classic tries to push in, but is punished for it. Is going to be forced back. And 9 workers is good, but Classic does have a third. And NightMare's just now gets thrown down. So that was a good amount of damage, is what I will say. Like, 10 workers, it's not negligible. But NightMare, he still has some catching up to do. And there's still a lot of pressure on him. He's slightly ahead in Stalkers. Upgrades are even. There's no +1 for anyone. And Proxy Gateway, he knows he needs to get more done. He saw how late he was when it comes to his third base timing. He needs to make something happen here. He's going to get at least a pylon. A probe even. Not quite. Doesn't get the probe. He's going to be trading with the army. He is ahead in Stalkers. Gets the pylon. Gets the worker in the end. Looking at the units tab, Classic is able to keep up. Still slightly behind overall in Stalkers, but with a shield battery, with an overcharge, he can hold. So far, though, the blinks are looking good. Blinks are looking good here for NightMare. Oh! Bleeding out one of his Stalkers, going for another warp in behind this. As this is happening, he's taking his third, catching back up. God, and that base is taking a lot of hits. Oh my god. The overcharge barely keeping it alive. Bearing in mind that the overcharge is being spent on the base, not on the Stalkers. But out comes the Immortal, the first one. And that should force NightMare back. That should. Overcharge has now run out. Has run out, and NightMare, he just keeps trying to push in, trying to force the issue, picking up whatever he can. He will get a Zealot. He's just not stopping. Just not stopping here. God, that base is so low. It's tempting, right? It's so tempting to get like 2 volleys. 2 volleys on this Nexus. Instead, he goes for the army, gets a Stalker. 1 for 1. Zealots are on the way. Charge is done, by the way. He's looking to pull the trigger. Oh my god. He's maybe hoping to force his opponent to overextend, and here we go. The Zealots are coming in. Zealots, they do charge forward. We dive on top of the Immortals. The first one is going to go down. Oh, not quite the second. Are we overextending? A bit of an overextension there from NightMare, but he will get on top of the Immortals. Both of them go down. The shield battery as well. Boys are being pulled. More Zealots are on the way. We need them. But Classic, he takes a massive Stalker lead. And NightMare is going to have to back off. Oh, he's going to lose so much here in the retreat. Now, a lot of Stalkers do go down. We have another warping of Zealots as well. The boys, they're being pulled into Zealots. NightMare, can he hold on? Can he take this? It looks like he cannot. Again, the earlier dive was ambitious. Does get a lot of workers, though. And these Zealots, oh my god. They're doing so well tanking. As NightMare, he does take an economic lead. He does have better saturation at the third base, but he is down in Stalkers. No shield battery. No shield battery back at home, but Classic doesn't chase. Classic, he's ahead in Stalkers, but he's waiting for his reinforcements. DT comes in. He's going to get shut down. And even though NightMare didn't kill his opponent, he's able to take an economic lead. He's down when it comes to Immortals, but he does have charge. And I do favor Stalker Charge Lot over Stalker Immortal. I do think that NightMare has a lot of potential with this army, but he doesn't have a lot of longevity. Now, what else is scary? No Forge. No Forge, no upgrades. +2 is on the way for Classic. As the game goes on, Classic's army is going to get stronger and stronger. This was basically an all-in out of NightMare. He was hoping to at least reset the army or kill the third base or both and just end the game. NightMare didn't achieve any of that. And just now he's throwing down a Robo. Again, still no Forge. He is on a timer. At least it feels that way. And Classic is catching up. He's catching up in workers, exceeding his opponent in army, and just getting further ahead. That was close though. Like, I did like initially the push from NightMare. I did like the timing with all those banked up chargelets as well, but the way that he dove on the army, especially against the overcharge, yeah, that was not it. Behind this, 4th base is on the way. Classic going to be rotating over. Again, Classic, he's not just ahead when it comes to the quality of his army, but now he's going to be ahead in bases and economy. Charge is finishing up, so now we're even in upgrades, or Classic's just strictly ahead. Armies are going to be clashing. We are ahead in Stalkers. But NightMare is pushing into Immortals. The Zealots are going to be clashing again. NightMare, he's pretty all in with this. Hallucinated the Stalkers. Can they take some shots? They will. He's doing the best he can to try to break through. But the Zealots, they get on top of the army. The Immortal doing so much here in the back line. And as the Zealots get cleaned up for both players, NightMare, he's blinking his heart out. He's doing what he can, but pushing up a ramp into Immortals, into now these reinforcing Zealots as well. He cannot break through. Almost did. That was a close fight, all things considered. But the one hero Immortal survives through all of that. Pushes through, forces NightMare back. GG gets called, and Classic will take game number 2. We have an ace match. GG. GG, well played. Again, things went down to the wire there. NightMare, he almost broke Classic at the 3rd base. He was almost able to kill him with that charge timing with the all-in. Alas, barely. Didn't kill the army, and didn't kill the economy either. We needed something to go right there, either killing the 3rd base or killing the entire army of Classic. Alas, wasn't able to pull it off, and with that, we have a game 3. We have an ace match. Let's go. Let us go. Meanwhile, it looks like the upper semifinals is their mid-series, are either in game 2 or game 3. Again, that's being covered by NightMare, by Into the Inu in Korean, by some of the other casters. And we have our 3rd map. It is going to be on Hecate. Let's go. Here we go. We're loading on in. Again, not too sure as to... I mean, I guess now we know the vetoes were. Just check your things, making sure everything is okay. And spawning in the top right-hand corner, we have our South Korean Protoss player representing Maturino Esports. It is NightMare. And spawning in the bottom left-hand corner, we have as opponent, we have the other South Korean player, the red player, representing Twisted Minds. It is Classic. Here we go. And what's important is that in the early game, we haven't really seen too much aggression here between our players, but NightMare already popped. Oh my god. NightMare doing his best Max Pax impression. Okay, I see you. He heard us say, like, mate, the openers have been standard. They've been pretty dull. Nah, not anymore. Low ground gateway here from NightMare. He is threatening to go for a gate expand, a very economic, greedy opener on Hecate, and this may trigger an all-in out of Classic. Classic is coming in with a probe scout, and he will get eyes on the gateway on the low ground. He is aware. He does see. He does know. And it is going to be on Classic to decide, does he play from behind or does he try to punish this? Now, just because NightMare looks like he's going for a gate expand, he himself could even go for an all-in off of this. We have seen that before as well, where you just don't throw down the Nexus, you force back the probe and you throw down additional gateways to Robo and you just go all in. So I am curious. Those wondering the reason why I bring this up, it is by law amongst Protoss players that on a map where you don't have a ramp coming into the natural, it is illegal. It is illegal to go for a gate expand. It is not allowed in the map pool. Currently, only Radisson Station and Site Delta are permitted to go for gate expands. And if you try to do something like this on a map like Hecate or a map like Alcyone, where there is no ramp leading into the natural, that typically does result in a one base all-in from the opposing player. Because you don't have a point of elevation, because you don't have high ground, it is very difficult to defend. My eyes are on this probe. This is looking like a proxy Stargate position, but we'll see if he throws down a Robo. See if he throws down a Robo instead. We can see NightMare trying to get a read on what's going on. It is going to be a double Stalker opener here out of Classic. He's going to be pylon blocking. He forces out a Zealots. Going to be delaying the expansion. And NightMare did open up double gas, so he's going for a faster Stargate. And there it is, a Stargate from Classic. So he is proxying, but this is not an all-in. Oh, never mind. Never mind, Bobby, never mind. So a proxy Stargate typically indicates that we're being aggressive economically, where we get an Oracle, we get into the mineral line, and we kill probes. Anything other than a proxy Stargate, like a Robo and a Gateway, yep, there it is, this is an all-in. This is an all-in from Classic. As he changes his mind, we do see NightMare aware of this, going for a Void Ray first. Very wise choice. Those wondering, Void Rays in PvP are typically only used defensively in the early game. If you go for a Stargate opener, they do very well. They're almost like Immortals. Almost. They're not as strong, but well, close enough. Where they can just focus down Stalkers and focus down Warp Prisms as well, in case it was a proxy Robo. So defensively, here in the early game, NightMare does have to rely on his Void Rays. They are going to be the backbone of his army. As Twilight Council is done, and we should be going for one base Blink, question mark. 2 gateways back at home, 1 gateway across the map. There it is, Blink is on the way. I will say that this is a little bit delayed because we started the Stargate and then cancelled, so this is late by a few seconds, and a few seconds can mean everything in StarCraft. NightMare, he's looking for the army. He's going out of position. Uh-oh. The natural base is exposed, and okay, we are able to keep up. A couple of volleys come in, but nothing too major, as NightMare does force Classic back. Second Void Ray comes out. Third Void Ray is on the way. Again, this early on, when you only have 1 gateway, you need to make as much as you can out of the Stargate. Second gateway is finishing here for NightMare. Meanwhile, Blink is halfway done. And with this Sentry, we will have high ground vision. Very important. Something that MaxPax is so good at, if he reads that you're all-inning him, MaxPax will get a second shield battery in the main. 1 in the natural, 1 in the main base. This main is looking very exposed. So, Classic, he is looking to bypass this defensive setup. We have a second shield battery at the natural. This is not going to help. Not when we go into the main base instead. So I'm a little bit concerned that NightMare hasn't pieced this together. I'm concerned that he doesn't realize how vulnerable he is. And we'll see how this does turn out as NightMare, he just dives on top of the army. First Void Ray goes down, but Prismatic Alignment has to be respected, and Classic is being forced all the way back. A very aggressive position here, and oh, we're coming in too soon! Classic's gonna lose everything. The Stalkers are going down one after the other. And it looks like NightMare, he shuts this down before Blink kicks in. Yeah, the Stalkers, they fall one after the other. We have 4 Stalkers left. We're down to 2. This proxy location will stay powered, but NightMare doesn't care. He may have lost all of his Void Rays, but we have more on the way, and he completely just shut down the army before Classic could really get going. And now Classic is on the back foot. Now NightMare can go for his own counterattack, and what is there at home to defend? A handful of Stalkers. NightMare now with so much momentum. Also, remember how I said that every second counts? Blink finished after that fight ended. If we hadn't dabbled in the Stargate first, it may be possible that Blink would have finished up in time for that fight. And we could have had like maybe a better engagement there from Classic if we hadn't just like switched gears at the last minute earlier. It's possible, as we do have NightMare diving into the main base, getting a probe. Up. Could it be a bit of an overextension actually here from NightMare? Oh my god, getting surrounded, losing 2 more Stalkers, racing back home. NightMare though, he's still ahead economy. Like the economy is booming, papi. Back at home Classic, still on 1 base. Proxy location gets shut down. Classic, he's down to 2 gateways, can only warp in 2 units at a time. Gateway is going to go down. And Classic is going to be pushing towards that natural. He's all in. It's all or nothing here for Classic. There's a world where maybe he can catch the army out of position. But we have 3 shield batteries. 3 pylons. No Artosis pylon, not here. Sentry's coming in. Classic, his last-ditch effort is to blink into the main. It's his final chance here. But even then, I don't know if I'm convinced. Across the map, a couple of devs say shade into the mineral line. 3 workers go down. We get a 4th. We don't quite get a 5th. Good blinks. Good blinks out of Classic. Does shave off a couple of those Stalkers. Oh, losing one of his own. Is bleeding out a couple of Stalkers here in the retreat as well. The Sentry's still in position. Gateway, or at least the Twilight Council, has been repowered so we can go for these slow warp-ins. Again, for those wondering, Sentry means we can get a hallucination, which means we get high ground vision, which means we can blink into the main, and it looks like that's what we're going for. So that's going to be like the best fight the Classic can hope for, because he will be fighting out of range of all these shield batteries and the overcharge. But I mean, it isn't just Stalker Void Ray anymore. We've got Immortals. 1 Immortal, soon to be 2 Immortals. Twilight Council's on the way so we can catch up and blink. And here we go. We gotta go for it. We gotta just send it, baby. We will take down the pylon. The hallucination is forced back. Oof. I'm sure NightMare now a little bit more wary. Could end up throwing down some side defense here as a result. As Classic rotates towards the natural base, gets the Cyber Core. Not too bad. Cybercore does go down. We can't warp in any more Stalkers. When it comes to the Stalker count, Classic is ahead. Classic, he does have more Stalkers than his opponent. Oh, as he tries to get the Immortal. So it's a good start. Don't get me wrong, it is a good start to snipe the Cybercore. And if only this was a gold base. If only we had a gold base here. If this was a full gold, then maybe Classic could try to take a ninja. It does blink into the main. We take down the Void Ray. We take down some of the Immortals as well. Good target firing coming in from Classic, but he's bleeding out so much. Gets every single Void Ray, every single Immortal. Good pickoffs. Really good snipes here from Classic, but he's being forced back. I'm saying, like, if we were on Golden Aura or if we were on Alcyone, then we could expand and take a gold, but it's only half a gold base here, so it's not anywhere near as lucrative. Otherwise, there could have been another way to come back in this game. Or Royal Blood would have been a better example of that. As Classic did reset all the high-tech units, but in a head-to-head fight, Blink is done for NightMare. He can dive on the army. This is all that NightMare was waiting for Blink. GG gets called, and NightMare, with the upsets tonight, he takes down Solar and he takes down Classic, advancing on to the grand finals. GG. Let's go. GG, well played. Vámonos, papi, vámonos. As NightMare will take it in the end, taking down not just Classic, but also Solar as well. Do love to see it. Really well done. Really well played here from NightMare. Just popping off today. Unfortunately, we missed out on NightMare versus Solar, so I don't know how he brought him down, but it was a 2-0, so a dominant performance nonetheless. Bearing in mind that Solar is currently peaking in skill. He is the most recent GSL champion, so NightMare, he's flexing his skill against Protoss, against Zerg. But what about Terran? Oh, it doesn't matter. I was gonna start like theorizing like this like scenario where like up next is Gumiho, you know, the ESL Masters Summer runner-up. Exclamation mark B. Exclamation mark B in the chat if you guys want to have a look at the bracket yourselves. Let me just move the bracket over so we can all, there we go, we'll have a better look. As you can see, upper semifinals has concluded and Hero took down Gumiho 2-0. NightMare will not have to face off against a Terran. It's gonna be another PvP. Doesn't get easier. He took down Classic, but up next is Hero.